we'll finish tutorial number 6. We left off on page AC 342. Actually, we didn't start that when we had just finished doing the combo box. We're going to do now a couple of other little items here. We're going to follow the book pretty closely here, except where things are sort of a duplication. Again, much of the stuff that we will show you, that the book shows you as far as making changes to forms, are very similar to making changes to reports. What I'm trying to do is to make a distinction between the two. So, here we go. Let's do add a title to a form. And again, what I show you here is the same way you would do it in a report. For example, please remember that when you create a form using the wizards, it will always create a title for you. But sometimes when you create a report from the form design view or create it from scratch, you've got to add your own. So let's pretend for just a minute that we don't have a form header, or excuse me, a form title. Let's suppose we've done this from scratch. The way to do it is to click up in here with the AA. Click on the AA here, and then you'll click in here inside where you want this title to be. I'm going to just drop it right about here, and we're going to type in there customer, oops, better spell it right, customer master update main form, and we hit enter. So anything you type inside those little text boxes, if you click on the AA and drop it, you can size it as you go and type anything in there you want. But it's just kind of like its own miniature Word document. So once you do that, then you click outside of it, and the highlighting should still be around it, the little border, so you can continue to change the format. I can click up here and I can go to format. I can change the letters to red. I can make the letters bigger. And one of the nice things about it, if you have the letters taking up too much space, if you place your mouse in the lower right corner as though you were going to resize it, if you double click when you get that double arrow, it will resize it for you, and it'll do like a best fit. Something else you can do is you can change the color of the outline. You can make it red or blue or whatever you want, and you can also change the thickness of the border of a label, whether you put it inside that of a title. Anything you do, I can do the same thing down here in one of the labels, or I can even do it to the fields. I can change the outside shape or the shape outline or whatever I want to do here. The fill, anything I do, I can do the same with the titles. So let me undo that because I don't really want a border around that. Something else you can do while we're on the subject, if I want to put shadows or a sunken effect or a raised effect on the label or any of these things here, all I need to do is select them, step 1. Step 2, if we need to engage the properties, so if we click design here and open up the property sheet, you'll see down here in the list of items that we have in the property sheet, you can find the default is usually flat, but we can make a raised effect, a sunken effect, an etched, and a shadowed, or whatever we want to do. You won't usually see the effect though until you remove the highlighting. So any of those can be done by this, and what I just did again, the same thing we done in report, and that's why in tutorial 7 we're not going to be talking much in chapter 7 because so much of it is so similar to a form. The only thing we'll talk about in chapter 7 are things that are not the same as a form. So that covers page AC 342, 343, and now we're going to get into, I want to do some more combo boxes. And I want to do a couple other little things I think you're going to find very useful here. I'm going to go away from the book because even though the book doesn't talk about it, the book will still likely ask you things in the homework, and I will be asking you things on the quiz. But we're going to do now a combo box that will be a list that you would create on your own. It would not be generated. See, this is what I'm saying. Let me just show you. The combo box we did in the previous recording where we actually made the cities combo box. Let's take a look at that again. If we click on that, the cities, you see, is listed there. Now take a look here. If I come over here and if I go into the cities and I double click and I add a city, let's add Dayton, since Wright-State is from Dayton, or we can put in there Cincinnati and whomever. If we add fields to that, this becomes what they call a dynamic box. Now the thing is, if I open the list now, those won't show because we haven't clicked refresh yet. So if I hit the refresh button up here, or if I just hit the F5 key, and then I go back up here, you'll see that the Cincinnati and Dayton now are in the list. What I'm saying is that's what's different about the drop-down list we're about to create. The one we're going to create is called a value list, and that's typically when you simply want to do a drop-down list of something that will never change. For example, close this and save it. Let's add to the customer a field here that would either be put in here gender. Okay. Now, believe it or not, we have to put gender as a field for people when we do a lot of legal documents because the people demonstrated we have to put in there like his or her. So we're going to put in their gender, and we're going to make that field size a size of 10. We wouldn't need, I'm sorry, that needs to be short text. Excuse me, short text. I hit the wrong box there. We're going to now go down and change that to a size 10, and we're going to save it. And let's close that. And we're going to go back into the main form now. We're going to go back into the main form. Going to go to Design View. We're going to add that field. Now remember how to add the field. We click in the Add Existing Fields. If we do it after the fact, I can click and drag gender over. This is all part of Chapter 6's way of showing us how to create custom forms. Now I may want to hit the arrow key to by the way, if I hit the arrow key, it moves it, but it moves it a lot. Control arrow will nudge it. It will move it a lot slower so that you can really get that thing where you want it without having to do the align button here. So you can really get it exact here. Right there. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to resize gender and get it for, but anyway, the point I'm getting at here is we're going to make that field what they call a value list. Now, I can do it in two ways. You need to follow me here. If I right click on gender, I can say change it to a combo box. Now, then I go over to the property sheet, and I can go to data, and I can tell it what kind I want. Now, if I click here where it says table query, I would change this to value list. Then I can simply come up here to the row source, and I would type in here male, semicolon, not a colon. This time it's a semicolon, and then female. Oops, female. Now, if I save this, you will then notice if we go back to the form view up here that we click up here. Now we have male and female as our genders. Now, let me do that again. I need you to see something here. Notice if I click on the city when we did earlier, basically we go in here and we use the cities table for that. So if I want to right click, let's suppose this state here, if we right clicked on that and did change to a combo box on that, and I put the cities in there, I could just type cities in there. That'd be another way of creating a combo box without having to use the wizard. Now, in this example I just gave you, I'm going to undo all that with the state. We don't want to mess with that. But now with the gender, the other way we make a value list is by using the wizard. So I'm trying to show you how to make combo boxes, either with an existing field or by ripping the field out and using the wizard. So we've done the wizard doing this, and okay, so let's do the wizard now with the value list. Step 1, we go to the controls box. Step 1, we go to the controls box. Step 2, we go make sure that the wizard is on, which it is. Step 3, we click on the combo box, and again, we drop it right where we want it. Now, they don't say it here, but this is a values list we're going to do. Please remember, the values list is different than the one before because this doesn't change. See, we can add cities to the cities table, and it will always update that drop-down box. But this is something we're never going to change. So that's the difference. So you can put it in there in a fixed manner here. So if we click, I will type the values that I want, that means we want a value list. So we click next, and it's saying, all right, what do you want in there? Well, in this case, we want male, and then click below it. Don't hit the enter key, it'll take you to the next screen here. Just click on the box below, or hit the down arrow key, up and down, and then go to female, type female, and then click next, and we're right here. Now it's like, where do we want it to go? Well, we want that to go to the gender field. We click next, and we want to name it gender, and we click finish. So again, that's how we would have done it using the the wizard. So again, but see, the problem with using the wizard is rather than using, is I have to drop it in there. I have to get rid of the element and drop it in. Whereas if I right click on something and say change it to a combo box, you can do it either way. And the reason it's good to do the change too is because the field's sitting there and it's already in place and aligned and beautiful. You don't have to completely redo it. So finally now, that is something I don't believe the book is showing you, but I recommend you really know. So now I'm shoring this up here. I'm going to take the mouse and place it, get the little black cross. I'm going to shore this up. We're now going to go to page 348, AC 348, and that is going to show you how to find a record. Now this is the third and final combo box. This one I really don't recommend that you need this box. This is a very valuable box, but I don't recommend you do it any other way than the wizard. In other words, only do the wizard. Because if you try to do it the other way by doing right click and change it to a combo box, you have to do a lot of Visual Basic, and that's way too difficult. I mean, we just don't want to have to go there. It's just way too much time. You don't have to spend the time. It's wasted time. So remember, I strongly urge you to use this combo box I'm about to show you, but just only use the wizard. Now here's how we do it. Step one you're used to. We open up the controls box. We make sure the wizard is chosen. It is. And then we go over here again to the combo box, and we drop the combo box about where we want it. The cross should go about, in other words, where in between where the label and the field will go. We click it, and it will drop it here. Now this is the third and final one. We want it to find a record based upon which one I choose. Now if we click on that and click next, we're going to put the fields in there, and this is something you can do in the first kind of combo box we did way earlier, the very first one we did. We can click customer number. I'm going to click last name and send it, first name and then send it. And I recommend you put in there like an address and the city and maybe even a phone number. The reason is so if we have two Jane Smiths or two John Smiths, we can tell them apart by looking at the address. So we know which one we're looking for. Then we click next. Now you'll notice here that the primary key, the customer number, is hidden. There's a good reason for that. Leave it hidden. And then these things can be resized to your liking here, like I showed you earlier, so that it will display the way you want. Now, the reason that the phone numbers don't have here the dashes and things is because we use the input mask for that. Now, there's a way to keep that from happening in the drop-down list, and I'm hoping I'll get a chance to show you that later. Anyway, we click next. We say, what do we want the label to read? I'm going to put in here, find by contact. I should say, find customer by contact, and so we click finish. Now let's save that. Let's go to the form view. Now the label's messed up. We'll resize it in just a minute, but what it'll do is you click in here. Now you'll notice here I can find the person I'm looking for, and it will pop it in. It will take me to that customer. Now a lot of important things I need to show you here. Let's go back to the design view and let's tweak this a little bit. And then I got to tell you some very important items here. Let's go back to the design view. Let's open up the property sheet for the field itself, not the label, but the field. And you'll notice the row source becomes what they call an SQL. Now, whenever you run a query in Microsoft Access, it creates an SQL. So in other words, when you do a combo box and you do what we just did, it creates its own miniature query in there. So if you click the little three-dotted box in here, this should look familiar. Now it takes you to the design view of the SQL or query that this little combo box contains. Now I can go down here to sort, as I showed you way a long time ago in an earlier session of how to sort. I'm going to hit ascending here. Hit the A key is the same thing. I may even want to sort by address if we have 3 Jane Smiths. So now you don't sort it by the customer number, or it's not going to help. You've got to sort it by what you're looking them up by. See, again, if we just showed the customer number for the whole list, we found what we wanted. Now I'm going to close and save that, and then I'm going to resize this label. The label really is kind of cuckoo. We're going to resize it that way and then resize it this way so it doesn't bunch up there. We can read it all. Let's save the form. We're going to go back into the form view. Let's try to see now the names are in alphabetical order. So now take a look here. If I want to go to find Rachel Kirk, I can type in K-I-R, and it takes me there. The reason that that's very valuable is because sometimes we don't remember how these names are spelled. So this way we can look them up, and all we got to do is type the first few letters. If I type the P key, it takes me to the first person named with the beginning, whose name begins with a P. Then if I want Pappas, I hit the A key and so on. So it's really a humongously much better way of entering. If I had not hidden that primary key when I ran the wizard there, it would have a list of numbers down here, and I'd have had to remember the numbers. This is a whole lot better. So when we click Pappas, it'll take us to Pappas. I cannot tell you how valuable that is. Customers absolutely love that. Now here's the reason that we prefer that rather than using the find. Now the book goes into a lot of things in the table and the form, and you can read that, but it's hard in the homework. It's really hard to get any value of that, because if I click in here in the contact last name and I go hunting for the find, I have to go in there. I could type in there Hawes. I could put it in asterisk and H-A-W-E-S and an asterisk, and it will click Find Next, and it should take me to Owen Hawes. That's all fine and good, unless there's 20 different Haweses in there. That's why this is valuable. I don't have to sit there and find every Hawes until I find the one I'm looking for. For example, if I go through and I got 10 Walkers, I can just go in the list and find the Walker I'm looking for and just click it, and it takes me there. This is immensely better and different than the search find icon here. That's why that's a very, very valuable drop-down box. So those are the three kinds of combo boxes. Notice that when you do that combo box, this one should remain unbound. If this one is not, say, unbound, you got a problem. Only the search box can be unbound. If you're going to choose something and have it enter data for you, you must have in the design view, you must see the field name into which that data is being entered. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to close that for just a minute. We'll be back to that for just a minute here. Something the book is showing you on page AC 353 and 352 is how to add a subform to a form if you're making a custom form. Now, this is very valuable because there are many times that people will decide after the fact that they want a subform. Here's another thing that's really important to remember that the textbook may not tell you, is you can add numerous subforms. And there are times I have had to do that. I don't just want one subform. Now, if you want more than one subform in a form, the wizard isn't going to help you. So this is why you often have to do the subforms yourself. Now, let's do this. Let's go to the Create. We're going to go to Form Design again. And this is a repeat. We're going to double-click the little box here in the top and bring up the properties for the form. Then we're going to come over here to the record source and say this form is going to read the customer's table. Let's close this navigation pane and get it out of our way. Now if I click on the existing fields and I click on the first field, Shift, click on the last field, and I can click and drag them over here. You see, now that's something we already showed. You can just bring the fields over while you're making the form from scratch. Let's close the field list now. Let's go ahead and save this as custom form so you can remember. Remember this part here we're doing. I'm sorry, I meant customer. Sorry, custom customer form. I meant to say. Sorry about that. And you can resize these, to your liking and all that. But what I want to do is what they're doing on page 352 and 353 is adding the subform we want of the agreements. Now remember, the only way we can do it is we first have to make sure we have this table here of the agreement subform already created. Now we did that earlier. If you remember, we did that by going to create more forms and multiple items. So if you want to create a subform, if you want to add it, it has to already be created. So let's go ahead and drop it in now. In order to add a subform to an existing form, step 1, click Design, and step 2, click the controls, the little scroll bar on it. Step 3, go finding the icon that says Subform/Subreport. Please, please, please remember, what I'm showing you is shown in a later chapter and for reports, and it is done the absolute same way. Absolutely the same way. So we click, that's why it even says subreport here. So you click on subform and subreport. We're going to drop this one here. Now remember, in the textbook, it's showing you that clinic. just if you want to walk through that too, I recommend you listen to me and do this, and then try to do the book one on your own, following my instructions here. Between those two, it'll really get you proficient here. It'll make you ready for these homeworks and for these quizzes. Now let's go ahead and click. We're going to drop that subform right there. And it's saying basically to us, what do we want to do? Well, we would like to create a subform. Well, we want to use an existing form. So we click Use Existing Form. And we click Next. And that's taking us to the screen we see on page AC 353 of your textbook. Now here, they are, well, I mean, there's a couple ways you can do it from here, but we're going to tell us we want to define our own primary key. What they mean by that is, how are we going to hook these two forms up? Well, you always hook these up. I should say, well, most of the time, what we're doing now, I should say, you will hook them up with the primary and the foreign key. In other words, we want the customer number of the customer table to link up with the customer ID of the contract or the agreement table. In other words, anytime we add a customer, we wanted to increase the number of records that customer has in the agreement table. So that's how they're linked up. Now, there are times that we do main or subforms in reports and forms that are not hooked up. But so I really shouldn't say always, but sometimes we do that. But most of the time, we will do it with the primary key and the foreign key. We click Next. Now, this is just simply asking what the label will say. So we click Finish, and you'll see it drops the subform right there where we dropped it. Now, again, I strongly recommend that you resize that subform, and let's save it, and let's now take a look at the form. You see there is John Herzog, and now we go to the next one here, and see this is the same thing. Here's the customer. I can come over here and I can add anything I want about the customer, and we've got ourselves another main and subform. Okay, next, let's do a calculated field. We're on page 356 of the book. However, I'm going to do a few things different that might help you here. Let's go to Design View, and let's do something now in the way of, let's see here. I'm going to do something here in the way of a calculated field. So I'm going to do it two different ways here. I'm going to do the book way. I'm going to do my way first, and we're going to do the book way. Let's click inside the agreement subform. Remember, you have to click in there a couple times in order to get something to work in there. Then we're going to click the AB button up here. Remember, AA is for title, but AB is, we're going to use that to make a calculation. We're going to put it right there above contract amount. Now notice it says unbound. Unbound means, by the way, that if you type something in this box, it won't change the record. It's not bound to the table. So you just look at it, just for viewing purposes only. Now, if you remember when we did the calculated field earlier for in the query, we had to use a name first. Here you don't need to. Here it's much more like a spreadsheet. You simply type equal, left bracket, we're going to put in there contract amount. Oh, excuse me, I can't abbreviate amount because it is in the field name. Contract amount with square brackets around it. It's going to be asterisk 0.02. Now I'm sorry, let me do that again. I'm completely mixed up. Let's do that again. Start that again. Equals sum is what I meant. Equals sum, left parentheses, contract amount. I beg your pardon. I'm confusing myself. Contract amount. That's what we're going to do next. Let me let you look at that. Equals sum, contract amount. Okay, let me explain a couple things here. If I had done that surcharge thing, I would need to put it in the line of the record here, like we did in the query. This is different. This is summing the entire amount of each customer's contracts. Okay, so just like you would start a spreadsheet equals sum and then you put a range inside the parentheses, well, here you put equals sum and inside the parentheses you put the field name with brackets around it. Now again, like anything else, I recommend you bring in the property sheet and that you make the format. Let's click format here and make it currency. Okay. Another thing to be aware of is sometimes these calculations in these forms get very sophisticated, and so that's why sometimes when you do that you want to click all and control source and then click on the little three-dotted box, and you can actually use this expression builder to create that. I'll show you that in more depth in a little bit. The other thing that's nice about this little box here, if you look at what you did in this AB box in the control source of the property sheet, it'll let you do the Shift F2 and you can work better. So you can't go into here, unfortunately. You cannot just click on that box and do a Shift F2. It starts to think you're trying to edit. So if you want to see better what you're doing there, click on it, go to the property sheet and go to control source and then do a Shift F2. Now we're going to double click text 10 here. We're going to type in here total contract amount. And we save. Now here's what's really very valuable about what we just did here. If you go to the form view, you'll see here it's going to total all my contracts. Now I don't have a contract. Now let's put in here like $3,400 for that contract. When I click outside, you see it's going to total my stuff only. I go to the next record here. There's Owen Haas. It's going to add his up. I go to the next one here, and it's going to, so there's Miss Hooters, you only got one there. Let's go to another one that's got multiple. See here, we got John Weiss. He's got 3. It just adds his up. Extremely valuable. So now I've really got a one-stop shop here. If I can put one of those search boxes at the top, and I can say, okay, John, I'm going to look up John's stuff, and now I can see anything I want to know about John, including the total of all of his stuff. So this is what they're starting to talk about on page 356. Now they're doing something else a little different here. They're using what they call the expression builder, which I'm going to introduce you more. I kind of talked a little bit about it a minute ago. We're going into the design view now again, and we're now going to go into a way of creating a total here of all the invoices they have here. So, for example, let's go ahead and do another AB. When you want to do calculated fields, similarly to what you do in a query, you need to click the AB, and we're going to drop it, we're going to put it in the footer here. We're going to create a footer here. Actually, I'm going to, if you want to add a footer here, right-click and click Form Header Footer. That will give you both a header and a footer. I'm going to shore it up like I've done before. You want to get rid of those. Same with a page header. Now, you don't ever want to put a page header in a form unless it's just for printing purposes only. And really, I strongly recommend that you print reports only. I'll just tell you from my experience. But nevertheless, if you want to get rid of a form header or page header, you just right-click in there and just turn them off. We're going to add it back here. We're going to right-click on that. We're going to put in there form header. And again, up here is where you would put a search box, combo box, or I could put in a label up here, you know, customer, master update form, or whatever. But we're going to put down below here, as the book is asking us, they're asking us to put in a calculated field that would go up to the form here and do the sum total of the contract as well. Now, there's no limit to what you can do here. You can count them, you can add them. We just added. I can get an average. I can do one across here for all those. Average, count, whatever I want to do. So let's go ahead and put the AB. Click on the AB now. We're going to drop it down here. And we're going to go to the text and put in here again, total contract amount. Now if you click on Unbound, double click it and bring up the property sheet. Once again, as I showed you a minute ago, now I can do a more complex calculation by clicking on the 3 dots. Now this is going to be a little more sophisticated because the subform is what we're drawing the data from, and we have to tell Access to go into that subform. So this is not going to be as easy as we did a minute ago with that summing of the contracts. When you do it between forms, it's a little more sophisticated. So when the expression builder comes up, you bring it up here and you double click Belmont Landscaping, because that's the database we're in. The reason we're doing this is because if you want to pull in something from a whole other database, you can choose a different database. But if you double click Forms now, we're going to say Loaded Forms, because the loaded form we're looking for is in fact the agreement form inside, which is the subform inside the form we're in now. So it's already loaded. So we double click Loaded Forms, and we see here, you know, I beg your pardon, that's right. It's not considered open because it's in the subform. Let's go to All Forms, and we're going to click Agreement Subform. So double click Agreement Subform, and we want to go up here now and say we would like to type in, click up here, we type equals sum, okay, and the word expression. We're going to just double click the field name, which we're going to scroll down. It's going to be, just double click contract amount, and right parentheses. So, and we click OK. So that's how it knows to go up looking for the other, looking into the other form. Let's try that again. I'm just going to make sure you got that. Let's try it again here. Let's click on the AV. We're going to bring it down here again. We're going to click on the source. Actually, a better way I think we could do this is click the three-dotted box. It will give you trouble if you don't choose the parent table first. We're going to double-click Belmont Custom Landscaping Firm Forms, and we're going to go to the loaded forms, and we're going to go to customer form. It's really better to get to the agreement form that way. I really recommend that. Otherwise, you will get an error. So now double-click agreement subform, and then again, we're going to come up here and type or click on here contract amount. And then we can make sure we wrap the equal sum left parentheses and right parentheses over here. That's actually the better way. So let's do it that way. And sum, otherwise you're likely to get an error there. There we go. So now we're getting an error there, but I think that's because we didn't refresh. But anyway, that's the procedure that you would use, and that is what the book is carrying you through on page AC358. Anyway, let's now move to the other area here and follow the book's instructions there. If that hassles you, sometimes it's a refresh thing, but it'll take care of itself. Now, something else I wanted to show you here. Let's close this one here, and let's go back to where we were. The customer main and update form. If you remember, when we put these other fields in there, let's get rid of that second gender field. We don't need that. Let's get that out of there. But what I wanted you to see here was that we have put in more fields after the fact. When you add fields, your tabbing, when you hit enter, will go to the last one you did. It will go to those last. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I hit start entering data, I hit tab, 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 and notice it jumps from street address over to city, and then up to state, and then down to email, and then over to the subform, you see, and then it never gets back to the gender. Why? Because we added in an earlier session, we took out the city field and the state field and put them back in, and they are the last ones we did. So that's why those are all messed up. So we want to change the tab order, in other words, so it's not dancing all over the place when we hit the enter key or the tab key. Now, in order to change the tab order, step one, double click and make sure you go to the properties of each of these fields and make sure that they're properly named. In other words, when we made the combo box of this one, it automatically named it combo 3. We want to call it city. Now make sure that state is named state, zip is named zip, email, and all these are proper. And this down here is actually called the agreement subform, which is what they would call the child, if we said earlier, the child form, which is the subform. So now that everything's named properly, step 2, we want to right-click anywhere in the design view in the detail area now, the detail area of the subform, or the main form rather, and we click tab order. Now, see, city is way at the bottom here. They're all goofed up here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click and drag city where it belongs. We click on the gray box to the left of city, and then we can drag it up here between street address and zip. Do the same with state. Click on the state, we drag it up between city and zip. We're going to take the gender, leave it. We're going to click on gender, we're going to drag it up above the agreement subform, you see. So now by doing that, we click OK and we hit save. Now you'll find that when we hit the tab key, it will go properly through all the boxes. So that is how you change the tab order. Next, little things that the homework is going to ask you to do in things is just to add little things here. For example, for just effect, just for looks, if you click on the design, if you click on the line here and bring it over here and just drop it, then press and hold the shift key and hit the right arrow key. You can drop a line just for decoration, really. You can click on the little box here and click on the rectangle, and I can draw a box around these fields here, like so. So that's something that they're asking you for on page A368 and 369. The visual effects as far as shadows is something we already talked about. So that gets us through tutorial 6. Now let's go ahead and close the folder. Save that. And now we're going to talk about creating custom reports, but much of what creating the custom reports is, as I said before, is virtually the same as forms. If you take a look at page AC384, and we begin to talk about customizing it, the same procedure is used, and we click Create, only instead of going to Form Design, we simply go to Report Design. And in there, it's basically the same as doing, watch me here, if I go to Create and blank Report. It's the same thing, only there we go into the Design View, and we're virtually doing the same thing. So from here, it's very similar to what we just did in chapter. Some of the things you don't know now are a couple things like, for example, the report view. Let's go to the report view of customer. Uh, Actually, right now in the print, it actually takes you to the report view as a default. If you want to see it print preview to print it, you would go to print preview. The reason that you might want to use the report view is because it does tend to make what you can do in a form. Can't enter data there, but what you can do is you can go in there and use the filter. So if you click the filter, you can filter it just like a table. So I can say, for example, let me go to let me scroll over here in this report of all the customers. Again, I can go to the city. I can click filter, and I can remove the select all, and I can say, again, give me all the East Lansing people. So I can filter it like I can a form. That's a nice thing. The other reason we go to the report view is because we can select and then we can actually copy things into Word. So that's also discussed in your textbook, and that's kind of a nice feature. You can also modify your report in the layout view. Again, if the layout view is what we're in now, I mean, we can go to that now. The report view is very similar, but we can go in and we can make changes. We can kind of see while we're doing it what the data looks like. So that's another thing they have you do. There's nothing in the homework I'm going to have you do with that. It's just something you need to be aware of. Remember, if you go into the report view and you select the fields or then the data and do a copy and then go into Word and paste, it makes it what they call an interactive document. The book is also showing you how you can put down, you can put in a report the expressions. And please remember again, let me just go over this one more time. If we go to the design view, we go to the AB, I can drop it at the bottom in a report footer. It won't work in a page footer. It will not work in a page header. It will work in a report header or report footer. If I click in here, I can click equals sum, just like I can in a form, and type in here the name of the field I want to sum. Now in this particular example, customer has absolutely no calculated field, so it wouldn't be a good example here. I simply type the field name in question, and then right bracket and right parentheses. So I can drop those anywhere I want. That is something you would want to do, for example, when you do the group and total report I showed you in an earlier chapter, where if you forget to get the subtotals, you can still drop it in there. So you notice here there's already one put into the reports automatically. That's the count function, and it will actually count the records for you. But that's the same thing. It's an AB that they automatically put in there for you. So just remember that if I do a calculated field in a report that is inside the detail, that is when you would do like a surcharge, like I showed you began to do earlier. So now, from that point on, we kind of got into these things. They're asking on page 403 to create a query. We've done queries. And then to create a custom report. Create a custom report the same way I just talked about. And it's otherwise, the steps are virtually the same as you would when you do a form. Working with the controls as far as aligning and all that on page AC 412, it's the same thing we showed you in the forms. Even adding a line or a rectangle in a report on page 416, you do that the same as you would a form. So those are some things we're going to skip. Something we have not done yet at this point that we can also do in a form is adding a date or a time to a report or a form. Now here's how we do it. Step one, you'll notice here in the screen here, that one was already created. Again, Access will automatically create date and time calculations when you use the wizard. But again, suppose for just a minute we didn't use the wizard and we're creating a custom report. Well, what you would do, step one, you click AB, and step two, you click it about where you want it. Again, when you click it, the label will go to the left and the item will go to the right. So if we go in here, inside in the unbound, we hit type equal date, left parentheses, right parentheses, and hit enter. It will print automatically the date that this thing was written. Why do we do that? Because many reports that we read, people want to know what was the actual date that it was run and what time of day even. So again, we can do the same thing here. We can go up to AB and we can click up here and just and I'm going to type equal, and here we can do time, left parentheses, right parentheses. And what this will do is this will automatically come down here to your computer clock, and the minute you print that out, it'll put it there. Now notice, again, this is how you put it in yourself, but Access automatically put it in for us when we did the wizard on this customer report. Sometimes, though, people want to know what time we're talking about. In other words, time of what? A lot of people who don't know what we're dealing with, they don't know whether, the date that the data was entered, the date that the report was run, what is it? So I'm going to click in here and type, kind of like we did earlier with the concatenus. We're going to type in there quotation mark, printed, space, quotation mark, ampersand. Now this works just like that of what we showed you earlier in the calculation of fields with the if function. We kind of ran two things together there. Let's do the same thing here with the time. We're going to click right here on the left of the word t, to the left of T in time. We're going to type in there printed, okay, quotation mark, ampersand, and then hit enter. And then we're going to resize that. See, then we don't have to combine the labels here. We're going to click on text 49 and text 51 or whatever it is there. We're going to get rid of those. Now let's save it. And let's come up here then to our print preview. You see here, there we go. Well, we have to go to, let's make that, let's resize that. Let's make that go to page. Let's go back to design view, change that to a landscape, and save it again. And then we're going to go into the print preview here again. Let's see now, well, it's kind of off the side here, but you can see it says printed. It's got the date and time there, you see. So that's what they're talking about on page AC 422, 423, 24, and 25. Now, sometimes, I mean, again, you'll notice if you run the wizard, it will automatically put in this little expression in an A-B box for you. But you can type it in yourself the same way, equal page, and then you see there's an expression it's reserved only for Access. It's not a field you can put in your tables. It's just a field that they create, and it's constant. It's always out there. And you would simply type in there equal quotation page, quotation ampersand. This page field will have it tell you what page you're on. The pages will count the pages, and that is how you can put that in just as I've written it there, or as the wizard has put it in there for you. You can just type it in like that. Okay, you run the print preview and you will see what the result is. If you go to the next page, it will show you it is page 102. The only thing we have left to do now for this recording is to do labels. Again, everything, close out and save it. Everything else we have done, let's close these reports. They work the same way in forms, and we've covered that. Now, let's now create mailing labels. To create a mailing label, step one, we're going to go to Create, and we're going to come over here to under the Reports area here and click Labels. Now when you click Labels, a wizard will come up, and you need to now choose the style of label you have. Now you'll notice here it says Avery, and when you buy a box of labels from Avery, it will give you a code. Now let's just suppose, for argument's sake, that the Avery code that we purchased here, I'm going to look for a common one here. So like here you see number across are 3. We'll just do that one, I guess. That's a very common one there. 3 across is pretty typical. But look on the box of the labels. You'll notice this is sheet feed. Continuous, I really don't recommend. Those will make you crazy because if something happens between the pages, they'll all be off on page 2. The sheet feeds are much better, and they're going to be usually what you'll find with the laser printers anyway. I don't see that people use the continuous much anymore. So we're going to choose the first one there. We click Next. Now here we need to find the type. I don't recommend you go over a size 10 for labels. And the reason is because you'll wind up having them often go off the edge. That's just what my experience has been. I also recommend you leave it at Arial. And you can make it bold or whatever if you like. That's your call. You just don't want to make it so large that some of the labels will be goofed up if you have some long addresses or some long city names. So we go to Next. And here, so at this point, what you need to do is to click on the fields you want over there in the order you want them to appear. So if we want the first name on the label first, that's a good idea. We hit it, we send it over, and then we hit the space bar, and then we click on the last name and send it over. Now, of course, in the label, if we're going to mail these, we want the address on the next line, so we hit the enter key. It's kind of like you would if you were in Word. So now we scroll down to street address, click it and send it, hit the enter key, and you click city and send it, type the comma in the space bar, and then click send the state. Give us 2 spaces, and then send the zip code. When you click next, you'll then be asked how you want to sort them. Oftentimes, in a mass mailing, people will sort them by zip. So we'll click zip, and then we'll come back here and well, we'll click zip, I should say, and send it over. Sorry about that. And then we'll come back here to last name and send it, first name, and click on the little arrow and send it. And then we click next. So we'll just call the label customer. That's a good name. And we click finish. Now, you've got your labels there, and you've got 3 across, and that's the format we chose. And it must match whatever you did with whatever Avery code you have on the box. So, this should conclude then our next recording. So in the next recording then, we will be preparing you for tutorial 8 and half of tutorial 9.